Hey, welcome back. This is Shah. A viewer of mine who watched one of my child support videos shared his child support story with me, and I asked him if I can share it with you guys because I thought it would be useful in terms of an education piece. So let's go ahead and read this together. So more or less, the state of Cali basically assisted in letting my ex steal my son. I had partial custody the entire time from 2008 to 2018. Never enforced my visitation, so I never got to see him, and after the first couple years, I lost all communication. I set numerous court dates and brought all paperwork and proof, and they never would take it into consideration. So what I can gather from that is he's already legally the father, and I say that because if he says he has partial custody, but I think what he's referring to is that he had an order for legal custody for a certain percentage of time. It could be 50-50, it could be just weekends, but they wouldn't give him that, unless he was a parent of the child and had rights for the custody. Eventually, in 2018, I finally got a court date to handle the custody issue and had it set months in advance. 3 days before my court day, I was informed my court date was canceled so they could give her a day in court to file for adoption for her husband. So he says from 2008 to 2018, so the child is at least 10 years old, depending on when he got that first custody order. And he never enforced the order. So if you have a custody order and someone's not letting you see your child, you can reach out to authorities like the police, and they should be able to then go, over there and basically force the exchange if one person's withholding the child. Now, when he says never enforced, I don't know if that means he never tried calling the police, or if he did and they weren't very helpful. She lied in court, saying they've been trying to get a hold of me since 2014, but could never find me. Ventura County was well aware of where I was because I kept them informed of all my addresses and places of employment. Her lawyer made me look really bad for absolutely no reason at all. Half of the paperwork the court accepted from her attorney literally said her husband was trying to adopt me. Very sloppy paperwork at best. Sounds like they weren't being careful on the names. It could be that his name is like maybe Paul Sr. and the kid's name is Paul Jr. I've actually seen a child support case where the grandfather of a child was served child support documents because him and his son, which was the father, had the same name. Also, I need to look, but I'm pretty sure the paperwork was never notarized. I was promised by her lawyer that if I agreed to the adoption that they would provide me with quarterly updates and they would provide my son with my contact information and he could get a hold of me when he wanted, since he was a few years shy of 18. So I agreed because it had been so long already and I didn't want to F his life up dragging him through court. Then her attorney told me they would forgive $19,000 for my child support debt, which I paid every week, minus the times I got behind, but they never stopped charging a ridiculous amount of interest, so it never went down by much. So California charges interest at 10% a year, and that, for some people, that can just build so much that some people are just going to be paying for the rest of their life. Even though my monthly statements have a balance, but also say amount due is zero. Once I signed the adoption paperwork, my ex closed the support case. Then Ventura County Child Support sent 2 refund checks and said my balance was zero. I still have 1 check stub. Then they sent me paperwork saying I now owed the state of California $3,700 and some change for Medicare and some other stuff, so I set up payment arrangements. So the $3,700 that he probably owed, that could indicate that the child was receiving cash aid for a time. So when you have a child support case, if the child never was a recipient of welfare monies, then all that money is owed to the other party, who's usually the payee, usually mom, right? But if the child was receiving welfare monies, then for every month the child received that month of child support is generally used to pay back the welfare grant. Then, as soon as the adoption went through, 6 months later, she reopened the case, and I now somehow owe $30,000 plus. So I can see exactly what happened here. It sounds like the attorneys and maybe even the ex-wife or the ex-girlfriend or the baby mama kind of played him a bit here. So They basically said they'd forgive the child support, and he mentioned that that was after he signed the adoption paperwork, and that he wouldn't have to pay her. It sounds like if he kind of played nice with them, and signed the paperwork and did whatever. Now, one thing you got to know about child support is someone can just close their case down, but you still owe the money. So what that means is there's still an order filed with the court that says you owe X amount of dollars for this kid born on this day, starting at this date, all the way up until their emancipation. And a lot of times people will just close their case down at the agency, and that just means we stop enforcing the order. That doesn't mean that you don't owe the money anymore. Now, for this guy to have gotten his money forgiven the right way, her attorney or their attorney, if he had an attorney, would have had to draft up what's called a stipulation and write that, hey, child support of this much money in arrears will be, forgiven, or, what I mean, set to zero. Put some language in there, and then that would have been filed at the court as a follow-up order to the original one. And then there's no way that the child support case can go back and open it. But what happened here is it looks like the mom just closed the case down, but she never got the order modified for him not to owe that time period or that money. And later on, that order was still live. So all she had to do was go to the child support agency and say, hey, I want my case reopened and I want to collect the money that I never did. And that's what the child support agency did, because their hands are tied to basically what the order tells them to do. So interest would have been building up that whole time. So basically he owes child support from the day the child support order became effective, probably in 2008 when the custody order was, because they probably decided on it around that time, all the way up until the adoption. So one thing to know about adoption is that if the child goes up for adoption, usually the way the adoption paperwork goes is there's an end date for your parental date, right? So you're still the parent from, whenever paternity was established, all the way up until that end date where the adoption takes effect. And now whoever the new person is that's adopted the child becomes the legal parent. So that period of time, he's the legal parent, and that child support order is still live. I almost deleted myself a few times. I can't concentrate at work, and it keeps me from holding a job for the most part, and bounce around different states to do it. I'm literally dead inside, and life doesn't seem real any longer. I can't even bring myself to start a romantic relationship with anyone because I don't want to deal with the pain that comes along with it. All this, and for what? My life is ruined. I'm 43, and I go to sleep every night hoping I don't wake up the following morning. And when I wake up every morning, I'm pissed off that I did. Nobody deserves this. My son is now 18, and I've still not heard from him. These kinds of stories, it's like I can look at this legally, and I can see what mistakes happened or what shouldn't have happened. But it really does, anger me on the inside, what happened to this guy. And legally speaking, there's probably nothing that anybody can point to say the other parties did anything illegal. But what really screwed him over was ignorance of the law. And you can't even be mad at him about that, because how many people are going to be that read up on the law to know all these little specifics that go on in here that can affect your life this much? I used to see it all the time when I was a caseworker. By the time they were talking to me across the table, it was already too late for them, So the law was going to fall on them. And this guy, unfortunately, got really, really screwed over by what looks like some fast talk. He made the horrible mistake of signing those adoption papers. He never should have did that. He should have kept bothering the police and saying, hey, I want my custody order enforced. I want to see my kid. It probably got harder once he lost communication and didn't know where they moved to. Maybe the cops could figure that out with enough investigation, but if they don't have an address to go to, that makes enforcing the custody order hard. So lack of communication between co-parents is a thing, and it does lead to an alienation. And it's really sad. I mean, look at where this guy is at now. Let's go ahead and read the rest of the messages. So honestly, what's the point anymore, bro? It's sad that this happened the way it did, and I know I'm only one of many that deal with this shit. But after a certain amount of time, why keep things on a false hope that things will ever be normal again? Yeah, it's effed up, bro. It's gotten so bad that I'll be driving down the road and just break down into tears out of nowhere. I can't even watch certain movies or shows now. I was just in Oxnard, and a buddy there was supposed to meet up with me and take my paperwork to a lawyer friend of his, and he blew me off. I can't afford a lawyer. I can't even afford a car with working AC, and I live in Phoenix. Want to hear something really effed up? I periodically drive around starting shit with people, hoping someone will pull a gun on me, and it's happened a few times. But this last time, I couldn't stop hysterically laughing at the guy and kept yelling at him to pull the trigger, and he got freaked out and sped off. Once the court gets involved, and you got the weight of the state that you're trying to deal with, and no one man, can beat that, especially if it's too late, especially if the laws are made in the way that makes it too late for this guy. Men start to feel trapped. You feel in a prison, and you have these thoughts, and it's either you want to take it out on the rest of the world or you want to take it out on yourself. And this frustration and stuff is stuff that we've seen over and over and over again. And it's really, really, really tragic. I've got a few things planned, but if they don't go through like I'm hoping, then I'm calling the game, coach. I reached out and responded and really did my best to try to give this man some hope. And the situation is definitely terrible. And I really hope that he can pull himself out of that dark hole that he's in. I think it'd be easy to give a lot of cliche advice here and say, hey, things are going to get better, this and that. And deep down, I do believe that stuff. So I hope that if you're watching, maybe this video can give you a little bit of understanding of what actually happened, and that you try not to blame yourself too much for this, even though I know that's a tough thing not to do, especially if it involves something as important to you as your child. And I just wanted to share this with everybody else because I want you to be able to see firsthand what kind of situations men can find themselves in, and just how important it is to really, really be aware of the laws, and I can't sit here and beat people over the head for not understanding that, because I didn't understand that until I started working at the place. Most of the guys out here are flying blind when it comes to this, because you're so busy with other stuff, focusing on your career, trying to get a house going for hopefully a future family. And then you get hit with something like this, and it's hard to keep up. Child support and custody are two separate things. Child support is a federally funded program that states and counties receive monies for in order to go after guys to set monetary amounts, most of the time to pay back welfare money expended for the kid. But it's not something that really can help you with custody. It just uses custody for determining how much you should pay. That's all the caseworker cares about. They have no power to help you get a custody order. If you ask them, they're going to be like, go to the family law court across the street. They got a self-help center. You can find some forms, and then, you got to pay for all your filings and stuff. And it gets tough fighting for that. And that's because custody is not something that, I think it's something that should be provided to men. I think it's something that should be kind of like child support, where tax dollars go to help people facilitate these custody hearings instead of having to pay for it out of your own pocket. I think that would help establish stronger relationships between men and their children. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below if you want to share your own story. Hit that subscribe button and share this video. The more folks that can get this kind of education, the more guys we can save here to avoid what happened here. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. This is Shah.